everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and we're now going to do a quick video talking about Indiana Jones, the fifth movie in the franchise, which is still going ahead. I can't believe it really, and I'm still skeptical, but I'll mention that in a moment. But it recently broke in an announcement that English actress Phoebe Waller-Bridge will now be cast in the lead role alongside Harrison Ford. Now, just in case anybody isn't up to date with what's going on with the fifth Indiana Jones movie, the film is set to be directed by James Mangold, who directed movies such as Logan, 3 to 10 to Yuma and Copland as well. And it's still being selected for a July 2022 release. Now, to be honest, I've never covered any announcements involving Indiana Jones 5 because I've always been skeptical whether the project will actually be happening. And primarily this is because, of course, the iconic lead actor in the role, Harrison Ford, is now currently 78 years old. And if you go way back to when the fourth movie, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, came out, he was considered too old then, and he was roughly around, I guess, 60, 63, 64 when that movie came out, and most of us felt he was too old for that movie when that came out. So what will people think when he's now literally 12, 13 years older than what he was when the fourth movie came out? You know, I think, to be honest, most of us agree that the first three films are near enough pitch perfect. At the time before the fourth movie came out, the Indiana Jones trilogy was considered one of the finest and best cinematic trilogies of all time. And once we reached the resolution of The Last Crusade, I think we all felt complete satisfaction is that it was a trilogy that needed to be left alone. There was no need for any more extension within that particular franchise. So that's in general why I've never really covered any news on Indiana Jones 5. I've just got no interest, no enthusiasm for it at all. I was very disappointed in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And ironically, Harrison Ford, for all of his old age, he actually wasn't the issue. I think, to quickly refer to, Crystal Skull really showed that the original magicians for so long, for the 70s and 80s cinema, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas and John Williams, really had kind of come to the end of their wonderful magical powers that saw them really dominate mainstream popular cinema throughout the late 70s and early 80s. And the fourth movie was very lackluster and just very bland, and an over-reliance too on CGI as well, and just lacking all the thrill and the danger and the jeopardy of the previous three movies. So I've just got no enthusiasm for the fifth movie overall. Now, when I'm going online and I've seen reactions towards this news, I think we just have to step back, because I'm seeing already a lot of people are getting very triggered and already assuming now that this is essentially going to be where we see the latest classic franchise being taken over by a woke narrative or social injustice role, where essentially we're going to have another case of a female coming in and taking over the role or assuming the mantle or taking over the position of the iconic white male lead character. There have been so many examples of this through later franchises. We just don't have the time to go through them all. Now, all I would say to that, I think we just need to wait, because at the moment, all we know is that Phoebe has been cast in the lead role. We've got no semblance of what the plot is, what the story is, what her character could be. There was no details given within the articles that broke this news out. So I think we just need to hold back before we start almost targeting this movie already, before we've even got a chance to hear what the story is. Now, in terms of the actress herself, I have to hold my hands up. I've got no idea of her previous credits. When I did my quick research, she starred in the BBC series called Fleabag that ran from 2016 to 2019. She was a showrunner and a producer for the first series of Killing Eve. He's been in other series such as the Channel 4 show Crashing and Broadchurch as well. Now, to be honest, I haven't watched any of those shows, so I can't give any indication as to the quality of her acting or her credentials. So by all means, let me know in the comments how good of an actress that she is. So she is currently 35 right now, so yep, still very young in her prime. She looks very nice, very pretty from what I can see on the pictures showing up on here. But that's really the only kind of intel that I could provide in terms of her overall status within the industry. So we have to just hold back and just wait what kind of plot they're going to come. Now, we can speculate, I suppose. Now, the big fear, I think, amongst many people is that, again, because of Harrison Ford, the fact that he is now 78, any fifth film in the franchise is basically going to have Indiana Jones basically just sat in his rocking chair or his Zimmer frame whilst the younger lead character does all of the action stuff. Now, of course, that goes completely against what the character stands for. One of the primary reasons why we love Indiana Jones so much is he is a very active character. The whole thrill of Indiana Jones is that he gets his hands dirty, he goes out there digging all of the historical artifacts, and that is what Indiana Jones is. He's not a sit-down character, he's not somebody who plans, he's not a strategist, he's not organised. We love him because he does things on the fly. That classic line from the first movie, I don't know, I'm just making this up as I go along. That's Indiana Jones, and he is an active character. So the problem you have is, are we going to get a scenario where essentially Indiana Jones, is Phoebe's character going to be his, I guess, his daughter or his granddaughter? I believe at the end of Crystal Skull, spoilers ahead, I think he got married to Marion at the end. So what will happen? Will this be his great granddaughter who we didn't know? Did he have an illegitimate daughter at the time and she just come out of the woodwork? A bit like what we saw with the recent Coming to America movie. And then we're going to get this narrative of her trying to bond with Indiana Jones. Maybe he doesn't want to know. Maybe we get this typical angst-ridden arguments between the two, but eventually they form a bond together. But essentially, is Phoebe's character going to be doing all the action work while Indiana Jones just stands there and watch? That's the big fear, I think, amongst many fans and me as well. Because, as I said before, I've got no excitement about this. I cannot see how at 78 years old you can still make Indiana Jones an active character. Now, of course, he's not a youthful character in terms of a teenage personality. He's much more of a young kind of middle age. So you'd normally assume Indy to be around in his early 30s, right? In his early to mid 30s tops. So he's got the experience and he's got the physicality to carry out all of the high energy adventures that we see within the movie. So that's what we're looking forward to in terms of Indiana Jones. But I just cannot see what other role there could be, and it's more the concern of Indiana Jones himself rather than Phoebe Waller herself, right? So I just think we just need to hold back and just wait and see what exactly idea they want to do with this. Now, the other big fear, of course, is that because Indiana Jones is one of the iconic franchises, we all know Disney and Lucasfilm, they don't want this to be a one shot, right? They want this to be another lucrative franchise that they've got hold of alongside of Star Wars, right? So the other big concern is that will there be a kind of a passing of the baton? So essentially Phoebe's character will learn everything that Indiana Jones will teach her, and then he will basically give up the role as a professor or the archaeologist, and then Phoebe will then go on to become the main archaeologist for Indiana Jones 6. If that's the case, they can't really call it Indiana Jones, right? So what will they call the sixth movie? Olivia Jones? India Jones? What would they call it? So there's all of this shenanigans that you don't really want to think about in terms of the franchise. We still have to wait and see, but I'm just fearing the reaction, because like me, there are many people online who are extremely passionate about the Indiana Jones franchise. Like me, it was a franchise that they grew up, with a certain generation throughout the 80s. We treasured the original 3 films so much, just like we did with the Star Wars trilogy. And I just don't want to have to go through this whole narrative again of where we see another classic franchise being tarnished again, and we have the whole online reaction and debate and the fans outrageous. Well, I really hope we don't go through that cycle, but I just cannot see any other way, because as I mentioned before, my concern is that Indiana Jones won't be the proactive character that we've all come to know him for from the franchise. So that was my overall big concern. But I guess the only positive news is that John Williams will be returning, of course, to reprise, I guess, his iconic score. He's got so many iconic musical scores, but yeah, he will be returning for the 5th film, but that's a plus as well. And yes, James Mangold is a good director, but yeah, it's really, I know all the headlines about this casting, but it's the fact that Harrison Ford is just too old. He's just too old, and the last thing we want to see is just Indiana Jones being completely kind of sidelined or dominated or prioritised by this female character. We've seen that happen too many times for all of the classic franchises, and I just fear we're going to have that same narrative again when this movie is released in 2022. So those are my overall quick thoughts and feelings on the recent casting of Phoebe Waller-Bridge as the female lead role for Indiana Jones 5 alongside Harrison Ford. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think this is a good thing, a bad thing? What do you think will come of this? Do you think we will get another provocative and outraged reaction from fans just like we had with Star Trek Discovery and The Last Jedi and the Disney Star Wars as well? Or do you think some positive can come up this? Do you think they can still somehow keep Indiana Jones very prominent within proceedings of the story, despite the fact that he will be nearly 80 when this movie comes out? So we'll wait and see what happens, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Please also hit those like and subscription and notification buttons so I can continue to provide you with more high quality content in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.